Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we'll be taking a closer look at the ethical side of using AI in business.
Sounds pretty interesting.
Definitely. Our main source is this blog post. Let's see. Ethical considerations in implementing AI solutions in your business.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
was just published last month, October 27th to be exact, on the Continuous Improvement website.
I've seen that one.
So basically what we want to do today is kind of pick apart this blog post and really get to the bottom of these ethical challenges that businesses face when they're, bringing AI into the picture.
A lot to unpack there.
For sure. And one of the first things they jump into right out of the gate is fairness in AI.
Right.
It's crazy to think, right, that like an algorithm could actually be biased,
Yeah.
which could then lead to some, really unfair outcomes when it comes to things like lending or hiring or even healthcare.
You hit the nail on the head. I mean, think about it. AI, it learns from the data it's fed. So if the data itself, has these baked-in inequalities, then the AI is basically going to pick up on those and could end up perpetuating those same biases.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like, just imagine a company using AI for hiring, but their training data, the stuff that AI learns from, it's mostly people from one specific background. While the AI might accidentally learn to favor those traits, in future candidates.
That's a scary thought.
It is.
So then how do businesses avoid falling into that trap?
How do you actually make sure that AI is being fair?
Exactly.
Well, one thing this blog post suggests is really thinking about diversity on all these different levels.
Right.
It's not just about checking boxes and making sure you have people from different, backgrounds and things like that in your data. It's also about considering things like income levels or, where people live, even just their different viewpoints.
Like going deeper.
Yeah, exactly. You could even go out and try to find data sets that actually challenge those biases that are already out there.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just about having enough data.
Right.
It's about having the right kind of data.
Absolutely. And then even after you've got your AI system up and running and doing its thing, you can't just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
The blog post talks a lot about doing regular audits and setting up these benchmarks for fairness.
Nice.
Ways to constantly be checking and tweaking the system, making sure it stays on track.
So it's like a never-ending process?
Pretty much. It has
Yeah.
to be. And another big thing that this blog post gets into is transparency and explainability in AI.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting.
They gave this example of someone getting turned down for a loan by AI, and they have absolutely no idea why. Can you imagine how frustrating that would be?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Infuriating.
So that's where transparency comes in. It's all about, really knowing how the AI works, kind of being able to peek under the hood.
Makes sense.
And then there's explainability, which is being able to see how it got to a particular decision. It's imagine you're a doctor and you're using an AI tool to help, diagnose a patient. Would you just blindly trust whatever the AI recommends?
Probably not.
Or would you want to understand its reasoning, see the logic behind it?
Yeah, you definitely want to know why.
Of course. But the thing is, these AI systems are super complicated,
They're
right?
pretty complex.
So how do businesses even start making them transparent and explainable in a practical way? That's where it gets really interesting.
I'm all ears.
This blog post mentions this idea of explainable AI. They call it XAI for short.
XAI, got it.
And it's not just about like the AI a voice, like some people think.
Right, right.
It actually uses specific techniques that let us, visualize and really understand what factors are driving the AI's decisions.
So you can kind of see inside his head.
Exactly, like peeking into its thought process.
Wow, that's cool.
But alongside all these fancy technical solutions, they also stress good old-fashioned documentation
Right.
and communication.
Yeah.
Because even if you build explainable AI, you also have to be able to explain it to people who aren't, tech experts.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about fairness and transparency.
Yeah.
Now, this blog post brought up something that's both kind of fascinating and potentially a big headache.
Oh, yeah.
Data ownership. Like, who actually owns those valuable insights that AI generates? Especially when you're talking about customer data or intellectual property.
That's a really good question. And it's tricky too, right? Because AI needs tons of data to work.
Yeah.
So imagine like a system that's analyzing customer data to come up with marketing strategies. Who owns those insights? Is it the company, the AI vendor, or the customers themselves, whose data was used in the first place?
Yeah, it's like a big gray area.
It really is. So what does the blog post say about navigating these murky waters?
That's what I want to know.
Well, they really hammer home the importance of like having super clear contracts and agreements right from the start. Spelling out who owns what when it comes to the data that AI generates. And of course, businesses have to follow the rules, things like GDPR.
Right. Data privacy, all that.
Exactly. And being upfront with users about how their data is being used, that's key.
Like transparency again.
Yeah, transparency is huge. Now, speaking of data privacy, they also get into this tension between protecting privacy and, fueling AI innovation.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Right. Like AI needs data to learn and grow. But what about safeguarding all that sensitive personal information? Think about it. Like some AI analyzing your social media activity without you even knowing. Kind of creepy, right?
I don't like the sound of that.
Yeah, no kidding. So how do we find that balance between letting AI do its thing, but also making sure people's privacy isn't being, trampled on?
Good question.
The blog post really emphasizes respecting privacy as a fundamental right.
Okay, sure.
They talk about the potential risks if you mishandle personal data, not just legal issues, but the damage it can do to a company's reputation.
Yeah, that's important.
So they suggest some practical things like data minimization.
Yeah, like a minimization.
It basically means only collecting the data that's absolutely necessary for the AI to do its job.
Oh, so it's like being mindful of what you're collecting and why.
Exactly. Don't just grab everything just in case.
Makes sense.
And then they also talk about using anonymization techniques to protect people's identities.
Oh, interesting.
So that makes it way harder to connect the data back to a specific person.
Smart.
And, of course, having, really strong security measures is a no-brainer. You got to keep that data safe.
Absolutely. Now, the blog post brought up another kind of thought-provoking question.
Oh, what's that?
When should businesses be asking for consent before they do AI experiments?
Interesting.
They painted this scenario where companies are like experimenting with AI on users, and the users have no clue it's even happening. Ethically, that feels kind of iffy, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely raises some red flags.
It's like, imagine you're part of some experiment and you don't even know it. That feels like a breach of trust,
Totally.
So should businesses be getting like explicit permission from users before they start doing these AI experiments? What do you think?
Well, based on what the blog post says, it seems like getting consent is the most ethical way to go.
Makes sense.
They suggest making participation opt-in, so the power is in the user's hands.
I like that.
And again, transparency is key. Businesses need to be upfront about the purpose of the experiment and how the data will be used. It all comes back to building trust and keeping that relationship strong.
Trust is definitely the magic word here. And we've covered a lot of ground already. Fairness, transparency, data ownership, privacy, consent for experiments.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I know. But this blog post doesn't stop there. They also talk about stakeholder involvement in ethical AI decisions. It's like we're moving from those individual concerns to a much wider lens,
Yeah, it's like zooming out to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And what they're highlighting here is that decisions about AI in business,
Right.
they don't just affect the businesses themselves.
Right.
They can have a ripple effect on customers, employees, regulators, even society as a whole.
Wow, yeah.
So it's not just about a company's bottom line. It's about understanding that these decisions can have a much broader impact.
I see what you mean. So how can businesses make sure they're actually considering all those different viewpoints?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is. Well, the blog post suggests things like setting up ethics committees or governance boards that include people from all these different stakeholder groups.
Okay, interesting.
And engaging with regulators, user groups, and industry experts, just to get a more well-rounded view of how using AI might play out.
It's like it's all about collaboration.
Exactly. Bringing all those voices to the table to talk about these ethical challenges.
I love that. But we've only just scratched the surface of what this blog post has to offer.
Yeah.
What else is in store for us?
Well, we haven't even touched on the societal impact of AI yet. Things like the possibility of jobs being replaced by AI and how we can make sure AI is used for good and not just for profit.
This is fascinating stuff. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors.
It's wild when you think about it, how AI, it goes way beyond just like one company or one industry.
It really does feel like AI is this force that's shaping society as a whole, right?
Totally. And this blog post, it really digs into those broader societal impacts. And one of the things they bring up is how AI could accidentally make existing inequalities even worse.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty heavy thought. How could that even happen?
Well, we've already talked about algorithms being biased, right? But it goes beyond that. The blog post uses this example of jobs, being replaced by AI.
Okay.
So if AI starts taking over more tasks, especially the ones that people are doing now, it could end up affecting certain groups of workers more than others.
Yeah, it's like those sci-fi movies where the robots take over all the jobs. But, okay, being serious for a second, it does make you wonder how we can make sure that AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Right, and the blog post really stresses that businesses have a responsibility to think about these bigger societal impacts, when they're deciding how to use AI.
So it's not enough to just focus on, like, efficiency and profits.
They need to consider the long-term consequences for everyone, the big picture.
I like that, taking a more holistic view.
Yeah, exactly. And on a more positive note, the blog post also talks about this concept called AI for good.
Okay, that sounds a lot better. What is AI for good?
Well, it's this idea of using AI's power to tackle some of the world's biggest problems, like poverty, hunger, disease, even climate change.
So they're saying AI could actually be used to make the world a better place.
Absolutely. And the blog post encourages businesses to actually look for those opportunities to use AI for good. It's not just about avoiding the bad stuff. It's about actively trying to make a positive impact.
Yeah, I like that, flipping the script on that whole, robot takeover thing.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the societal impact of AI, both the potential risks and the really cool opportunities. What other ethical considerations did this blog post get into?
Well, they spent some time talking about human oversight, which is super important.
Okay, what do they mean by that?
So basically, even as AI gets more and more advanced, they emphasize that humans need to stay in control, especially when it comes to those really big decisions.
It's not about just letting AI run wild and make all the calls. Right?
Nope, not at all. The idea is that AI should be a tool to help us to enhance our capabilities, but not replace humans completely.
Yeah.
We need to be able to understand what AI is doing, be able to monitor it, and even step in and override its decisions if we have to, especially if those decisions raise ethical concerns.
Like having that emergency brake, just in case.
Exactly. And all of this ties into the bigger topic of AI governance,
Okay.
which is all about having clear guidelines and regulations and ethical frameworks, to make sure AI is being developed and used responsibly.
So it's like creating a rule book for AI, making sure it's on the right track.
That's a great way to put it. And that's where collaboration is so important.
How so?
Well, it's not just up to businesses to figure all this out on their own.
Right.
We need people from government, from industry, from universities, and even just regular citizens, everyone working together to come up with a shared vision for how AI should be used ethically.
That makes sense. It's a team effort.
It is. Did the blog post give any real-world examples of how companies are trying to handle all these ethical challenges?
That's what I was wondering, yeah. Did they?
They did. Like some companies are putting together those internal ethics boards that we talked about, to review AI projects and make sure they line up with ethical guidelines.
So they're actually putting these ideas into action.
They are. Other companies are coming up with tools and ways to identify and fix bias in their AI systems.
So they're taking those principles we've been talking about and making them real.
Exactly. But the blog post also makes it clear that we're all still figuring this out as we go.
It's like a learning process.
Right, totally. AI is constantly changing, so we have to be flexible and willing to adapt as we go.
It's like we're all kind of learning and growing together, figuring out how to use this incredibly powerful technology the right way.
That's a great way to put it. And the blog post ends on a really positive note. They suggest that if businesses really embrace these ethical AI principles, they can actually unlock a whole bunch of new opportunities,
Like what?
Not just avoiding risks, but also finding new ways to innovate and make a positive impact.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just about preventing harm, it's about using AI to actually make things better.
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but I feel like we've covered a ton of ground today, and I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear our final thoughts, the key takeaways from all of this. What should they be thinking about as they navigate this crazy world of AI?
That's a great question.
Okay, so we're back. I have to say my head is spinning a little bit after all that. From biased algorithms to AI, like solving world hunger, we've covered a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot to process. But I think what we really need to remember is that AI isn't some far-off thing of the future, It's here, it's happening now, and it's already having a huge impact on us.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just some abstract concept for tech people to worry about. it really does affect all of us.
Right. And that's why it's so important to stay informed and to be a part of the conversation. You don't need to be a programmer or, a data scientist to have a say in how AI is used.
So what can we do, like as regular people? How can we actually make a difference in this whole ethical AI thing?
It starts with, honestly, just asking questions. Like whenever you run into AI in your everyday life,
Yeah.
whether it's like a recommendation algorithm or a chatbot or whatever, don't be afraid to dig a little deeper.
Oh, interesting.
Think about what data is this AI using? How is it making its decisions? What's being done to protect my privacy?
So we kind of need to become like AI detectives.
Exactly. And remember, businesses are still trying to figure this out too. They need feedback from people like us, everyday users, to help them develop their AI in a way that's ethical and responsible.
So it's a two-way street. We need to be informed, ask questions, and businesses need to be transparent and open to that feedback.
Exactly. At the end of the day, AI is a tool, right?
Yeah.
And it was created by humans.
True.
We get to decide how it's used. We have a responsibility to make sure it's used for good.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's not about being afraid of AI or letting it take over. It's about making sure it works for us, for humanity.
That's a great way to put it. This whole conversation actually makes me think of that quote by Arthur C. Clarke, the sci-fi writer. He said, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
I've heard that one.
And AI can definitely feel like magic sometimes.
It does.
But we can't forget that behind that magic, there are real people making choices, and those choices have real consequences.
So true. Well, this has been a really incredible deep dive. I feel like we've explored so many different facets of ethical AI in business, from fairness and transparency to those bigger societal questions.
And like you said, this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Right, it's ongoing.
The world of AI is constantly evolving, and so are the ethical challenges that come with it. We've got to be willing to learn and adapt as we go.
It's a journey for all of us.
Absolutely. But if we work together, stay curious, and remember to keep asking those tough questions, I really believe we can create a future where AI benefits everyone.
Well said. A huge thank you to you for guiding us through this complex and, let's be honest, sometimes overwhelming topic. It's been truly eye-opening.
My pleasure. It's been great chatting with you.
And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, stay curious, keep asking questions, and let's build that future where AI is a force for good in the world.